But, I mean, what if Jameson Williams is on the board there at 15? Do you do it? Because I see a lot of Tyreek Hill in him, and it's scary because that guy knows how
The
to get
Eagles
open.
saw a lot of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Reagor. How'd that work out?
Oh,
Yeah.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
you got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We have another follically challenged partner joining the fray. Our buddy from CBSSports.com, Jeff Kerr, jumps aboard with us here on Birds 365. 3 weeks to the NFL draft. Jeff Kerr, how many mocks have you done so far? How many more mocks do you have to get in before the actual draft starts to take place?
I hate mock drafts, so I only do one, and I'm required.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I only do one real one, full first round. I only do one.
I bragged
can't
one
stand.
year because I got like 10 picks right, and I just said to myself, hey, this is probably the best I can ever do because I only do one. I don't do mock trades. I love when people try to play GM with these.
Oh my God, it's such a waste of time. Well, I've had this argument with so many editors over the years. I'm like, they want and because they're popular, let's be honest, and they want mock drafts before free agency, and I'm like, it's just so dumb. It's such an exercise in futility after the season ends. But I mean, I guess, and Jimmy Kempski brought this up yesterday, which is a good point, and how he does his mock drafts. He never repeats the same player for the Eagles only mocks. So, and he's just trying to teach people about the actual players that might be in play. So maybe it's helpful from that standpoint, but for people that take them seriously, you should not take them seriously. What did Randy Mueller call them yesterday? Give me.
I don't care what he called him. He said, give them all to me while they're doing their draft prep. I want to hear from him. Give me Jeff Kerr. Put his on the top of the pile. Where's Jeff Kerr's mock?
Did he call them trash or garbage, though?
You guys see there's a website where they basically take everybody's mock drafts, their final version, and then they score them. I love that. That's my favorite thing to read at the end of the draft.
Well, the last ones, are relevant, especially when you get I always like to look at Peter King's because Peter knows so many people around the league. They tend to Rick Gosselin. Back in the day, people in the NFL used to want to get his mock drafts because he knew so many people around the league. And, those are valuable, but, the early mock drafts, they're circular file material as soon as they get, and the best part is the poor people. Sorry, Jetty. The poor people that did their mock drafts right before the Eagles and Saints made their trade, they had a shelf life of about 12 minutes.
So I did an Eagles only mock draft. I only do one of them too. And I had 15, 16, 19. I'm like, boy, I really like this draft. And then 5 hours later, the Eagles make a trade.
That's awesome.
Now you gotta be careful with Peter King because I'm how big a fan of Peter King I am. Everyone knows that Peter King is a guy that people are going to look to see who he's mocking because he's that well connected. I think Peter has over the years been a guy who's gotten misinformation. That
sure.
NFL
Everybody
teams
does.
want to feed Peter King what they're going to be doing to specifically hide what they're actually going to be doing because Peter King is as well respected as he is.
I'm not saying take it as gospel, but he's one I just like to look at before the draft.
Speaking of players that I think we're getting misinformation on, there's no way Kayvon Thibodeau doesn't go past 2, right?
The Eagles. No, I think he might. I think Trayvon Walker is going 1 or 2. I really do. And I'm proud of that one. I'm proud of that one because my first Eagles only mock draft, I had him taking Trayvon Walker at 15. I said he's a perfect fit for what Jonathan Gannon wants to do. And people just killed me. He can't go 15. He's the 3rd best player, blah, blah, blah. And I said, wait. NFL people like him more than you do. And I didn't know how much they liked him. I mean, he's going to go off the board quick. And if he goes 1 or 2, I think Hutchinson goes the other spot. And I do think he's going to drop a little bit but I don't think it's out of the top 10 by any stretch.
I'm still a big fan of Evan Neal. I just don't see how Doug Peterson could pass on a guy who you could play a guard right away, and then you can move him outside the tackle, and especially how they want to protect Trevor Lawrence. But again, you're right; it's hard to pass on a Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Aiden Hutchinson. But for an offensive lineman, but if you can get a guy that's going to be there for the next decade, that's tough to pass up on.
Yeah, Rick Saratella was on with us earlier in the week, and he mentioned, there is a math problem. So I say that every year. You talk about there's 50 first-round picks when you listen to certain guys. And this guy's a first rounder. They're giving out first-round status like they're Oprah at a television taping. And then you start doing the math and you start going, what if, So there are so many offensive tackles. So you start thinking about the Eagles at 15. If the two quarterbacks get pushed up the board a little bit, and I don't think that's, so we're talking about Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis or vice versa. So Carolina jumps, if Washington, whomever jumps at a quarterback, the Eagles are going to get a good player at 15. Just if you do the math.
I forget who wrote it for CBS Sports. I want to give credit to my buddy Josh Edwards here, but I'm not exactly sure who wrote it yet. It's going to be coming out this week. The Saints gave up a lot of draft capital to lose in the first round of the playoffs if they get there. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, he's absolutely right. And I kind of read like the early draft, and did you do all this to get a quarterback, yet alone probably the third best quarterback? Do you like Desmond Ridder or Matt Corral that much? I mocked Corral to him after the trade, but I don't know. It's just taking them in the top.
Randy was on with us yesterday, and he's still very close with Mickey Loomis. He said he thinks there's another shoe that's going to drop. So he thinks there's going to be another move. And maybe you remember when the Eagles got Carson Wentz, they had to move up twice. So, maybe this is the first part of their move up twice to get the quarterback they want. And who knows what that might be. But I will say, if they just traded up to get a better player, a positional player where they are,
they just could have got it at 18 and
but they get two players because they had a first round draft pick.
They get two.
And John, I actually believe that's what they did. I think they liked the strength of this draft, and they said we can be a playoff team. They looked at what you and I looked at it in the first couple minutes of the show. Green Bay isn't Green Bay without Devontae Adams. Tampa might not be Tampa without Bruce Arians. All right, the Rams look like the defending champions they are, but why can't we jump into that group and take a puncher's chance? If we get another player that we can plug and play in our starting lineup, relatively inexpensive on a rookie deal, we've got cap issues and we need these type of players. We can't get him. We can't trade for a Tyreek Hill because there's no way we're getting that cap work done. That's what I think they did. I think they are, which I kind of question the Eagles on. I think they're saying, we want to take a chance in 2022. Yeah. Kind of like Mr. Snead out there in L.A., the draft picks. Let's take a puncher's chance this year.
I got to do a little bit of research on this, but I kind of like the way you're thinking here, Jody, because I think they're the first team since the 91 Eagles. I'm not even sure that the 91 Eagles started 4 quarterbacks, but I think they're the first team since the 91 Eagles to start 4 quarterbacks in a season and have a winning record. If the 91 Eagles did it. If not, then they're the only team, because I don't remember any other team, at least in my lifetime, starting 4 quarterbacks and having a 9-8 record like they did. And they were 5-2 and they had Jameis Winston and then got hurt, and that was pretty much the end. They weren't winning with Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, and I forget who else started. Ian Book, that's right. Ian Book started a game, but they're not that far off. I know Marcus Williams is a big loss. Ron Armstead's a big loss, but
well, that's what I was saying. And they're in salary cap, issues, obviously, but if you're thinking that way, you better figure out a way how to get some voidable years and restructure contracts and get players like, especially Armstead. You can't give up that guy's a top 5 left tackle. I mean, you could argue top 2 at times. I don't know how you let a player like that leave and say, "Oh, let's try to win." I mean, that to me would signal, okay, I got to do everything possible to get this guy back, and then all right, let's build, let's try to win. Because Jody's right, and I've talked about this. I don't get this from an Eagles perspective, so I'll ask you, Jeff. And I always call it the "we're not ready" crowd. Are they ever going to be ready? Were they ready in 2017? We're not ready. We're not ready. When is ready? Can somebody tell me what that looks like? Because I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, the Phillies haven't made the playoffs in 10 years, and they decided they were ready. So it's a different sport, obviously. But yeah, football. What's all in? What's ready? The Chiefs are always ready. The Bills are always ready. The Rams are always ready. The Seahawks are. I mean, they're definitely in the "we're not ready" crowd. But yeah, you're right. It's when you say, "Hey, we're gonna." What's the Teddy Roosevelt quote? Swing a big stick or whatever it is. I forget the exact quote, but when are we going to go all in? When are we going to make these types of moves? And the thing is, you're right, John. Who knows? Who knows? I feel like you should be ready when you're about to pay your young quarterback, your young franchise quarterback, and say, we're going to get this guy all the weapons he needs. And really, a team that should be doing this every year is the Dallas Cowboys, and they just don't do it.
All right, JK, I need your opinion on this. We may have asked you this a month ago, but a month ago, the Eagles had 3 first-round draft picks. Now they only have 2 because they did the deal with the Saints. Let's say that of the 5 defensive ends in this year's draft that are thought to be certainly first-round talents and maybe top half of the first-round talents, let's say 4 off the board. And we just talked about the guys who could go right at the very top. Shoot, defensive ends could actually go 1, 2, 3. Not completely out of the question that you could go DN with the first 3 picks. And let's say another one goes. But one of them is left, like a Karlaftis. Let's say he falls down to number 15. But the Eagles also need a starting cornerback across from Darius Slay. And the Eagles also need a safety to pair with Anthony Harris in the defensive backfield. And, oh, by the way, as there has been this major move, expensive moves at wide receiver around the National Football League, the Eagles right now are planning on sending Quez Watkins out there as their wide receiver too. So they've got holes to fill. If they don't come away with a defensive end, if they decide to pass on a guy like Karlaftis because they have other holes to fill, you ready to see a bunch of Derek Barnett again this year, JK?
No, I'll say that.
Get ready for it. Get ready for it.
I mean, what if Jameson Williams is on the board there at 15? Do you do it? Because I see a lot of Tyreek Hill in him, and it's scary because that guy knows how.
The Eagles saw a lot of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Reagor. How'd that work out?
Yeah. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I agree with you. But I'm just saying, I watched enough Jameson Williams tape where this guy just gets open all the time, and once he gets the ball in his hands, he's gone. And
I love Jameson Williams, by the way.
You pair him with Devonta Smith, you pair him with Dallas Goedert. I don't care if Jalen Hurts can't hit the ocean with the football. He's going to find him, and it's going to help Jalen Hurts. And I think whether it's Jalen Hurts or the quarterback in 2023, Jameson Williams is going to be a high-value player for the Eagles for a long time if they were able to get him. But, yeah, I really don't know how you pass on a guy like Karlaftis either because he can get to the quarterback, and the Eagles do prioritize the offensive and defensive line. I'm still on the Devin Lloyd binge. I really want them to get Devin Lloyd with one of those picks, but that
glutton for punishment, yeah. Glutton for punishment, you are with the line.
Oh yeah, they don't draft linebackers in the first round. I don't know why I asked this, but
you're not the only one. You know what makes drafting so hard? I'll give you guys an example. Rick Saratella was on this week, and we have tremendous respect for Rick, NFL Draft Bible. And he mentioned Chris Olave, and he compared Chris Olave to Kadarius Toney. And right then, the minute he said that, my mind shut off on Chris Olave. Because I said, not that Kadarius Toney can't be a good player. He could turn into a good player. But that's that type of manufactured touch guy we're talking about with Jalen Reagor, and he's going to stretch the field vertically and horizontally. I have never seen the Eagles take advantage of that type of player, and until I see it, I can't believe they can do it now. And this is over different regimes. Nick just got here. He really hasn't had the opportunity, unless you want to call Jalen Reagor an opportunity. But he really hasn't had the opportunity to take advantage of a player like that. Maybe he can, but I just can't imagine the Eagles can do it. So I shut my mind off. That's what's so hard to evaluate, because there's so many noises, there's so many thoughts coming at you. And when the Eagles talk about taking those first round picks, and we're talking about positions and edge rusher and defensive tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, they have enough needs to where they should be able to get good players, but they can't be hamstrung by looking for particular positions, because then they're going to get in trouble. And unfortunately, I think they're going to look at certain positions. Do you agree with that or disagree?
Absolutely. Look at their needs: cornerback, safety, linebacker. They're deep at defensive end, but you could use a wide receiver. They definitely have a need for. Maybe they want to add more offensive line depth. You're right, John. It should be the best player available, whoever that is. Now, I wouldn't draft a quarterback with the best player available, but he wouldn't be that anyway. So I'm looking at it as, you got to look at who's on your board, and then when you get to 15, and then you say, okay, which player can A, make the instant impact, and B, who's going to be here, who's going to be part of this franchise for a long time. And that's where you look at, I don't know if Andrew Booth's going to be great, but I think he'll be great with Darius Slay, if that makes a lot of sense. So maybe that's what you do. Maybe you pair him there. If Kyle Hamilton's at 15, I'm running to the podium. He's not going to be at 15, but
you never know with this league, man.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Never know.
He's one of those guys where I feel like he should go in the top 5, and he won't. But yeah, you got to look at George Karfafis. That's another one. It's tough to pass on him, but then when you got a guy like Jameson Williams there, do you really want to wait till 18 to get him? Do you really want to do that? Or if Garrett Wilson's up there, I'm running up there. By the way, the Chris Olave thing, I used to joke he was the third best wide receiver at Ohio State when Jameson Williams was there, and Jameson Williams never played. So that was always my running joke on Chris Olave. Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to be a stud in this league, but beside the point. But
I think both Ohio State guys are going to be as good as advertised. Do me a favor. I'm having a forgetful moment. We were talking about the created catches guys. A couple of years ago, I think he was West Virginia. The Cowboys took him in the first round. Austin. Why am I forgetting the guy's name?
Miles Austin? No. Tavon Austin. Yeah. Tavon
Austin.
Yeah.
You can't take a player like that in the first round. I know everyone wants to throw the Deebo Samuel, just get him the ball, get it to him in space comparison. Deebo is Deebo, and there's not other Deebos. That you're doing a guy an injustice when you say, "Oh, he could be the next." No, he can't.
Yeah,
pick either.
Jody, but you and I have talked about this before. I'm with you on Deebo, but Deebo wasn't Deebo until Kyle Shanahan turned him into Deebo. Deebo didn't carry the ball a lot in college. He wasn't that Swiss Army like moved all over. That's why I laugh when we've had this discussion. He's the next Deebo Samuel. Well, you getting Kyle Shanahan too? Because you got to have that. That's what I was just talking about with the Eagles and the manufactured touch player. Never seen any evidence they could take advantage of that type of player. So why would I want that type
Andy
of player?
Reid couldn't do it, and he tried to make Freddie Mitchell that a couple times. It never worked.
Yeah. But I mean, Deebo Samuel is Deebo Samuel. Yes, the talent is spectacular, but people have mentioned Treylon Burks this year. But you got to put him with the coach who can do it and is willing to do it. And there aren't many coaches like that. In fact, I think it starts with Kyle and probably ends with Kyle, to be honest, because I don't think Deebo Samuel would be Deebo Samuel in any other offensive system. And I think that part of it, too many people miss.
There might be one coach who can replicate it, Mike McDaniel. He might be the only one.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, we have to see him this upcoming year. All right, Jeff. I know not only do you follow the Eagles, but and you follow the whole league for CBS. You have a specific leaning into the NFC East, aka the NFC least. Certainly was 2 years ago. Was slightly improved this year. Coming into 2022, I think as of right now, the entire division has taken a step backwards. Again, are the Eagles missing out on an opportunity? There's a look at an entire NFC as a conference, and then there's the more narrow focus look at the division. Are the Eagles missing out on an opportunity to actually get to the Cowboys level, maybe surpass the Cowboys, win a division? Because I think the Cowboys have come back to the pack. The Giants have made some executive decisions, but I've seen nothing on their roster that improves them. I think when you think about Carson Wentz running the show down in Washington, are the Eagles missing out on getting better, putting more resources into 2022 and becoming the AFC East champs?
This is tough for me because the Eagles didn't do much this free agent season, at least in the first wave. And yet I still think they caught the Cowboys because the Cowboys kind of had self-inflicted wounds. And they had to give up good players like Amari Cooper and Randy Gregory left them. And yeah, I mean, Keanu Neal wasn't a major part of their defense last year, but he was a big contributor, and they just couldn't re-sign him. And, lo and behold, he goes to Tampa Bay, and now he's going to play safety again. I know they tried to talk to Bobby Wagner, tried to get him to come here. He didn't really have that much interest in there, probably because they wouldn't pay him what he was seeking. So, Dak Prescott, unless they draft a receiver in this draft, which, again, is very possible, his best running back may be Tony Pollard. It may not even be Ezekiel Elliott, who really didn't have a great game from week 6 to week 18. And he had a great game week 18 because he was playing backups. So I'm looking at it as Dallas was this team that was leaps and bounds better than the Eagles last year. This year, right now, I don't know if they can. I think the Eagles split with them right now, just based on the significant talent gap. And I think the Eagles can improve in the draft. And I think that's where they're obviously focusing on it. So did they miss an opportunity to compete with the elite of the NFC? I don't know if they could compete with them, but they definitely put themselves in a position where they potentially could win the NFC East and get one of those top 4 seeds just by doing minimal stuff right now.
But then I'll ask you, what happened? Because that was the Andy Reid sentiment. That was the sentiment of this organization for a very long time. It was, if you're very good over an extended period, and you keep getting your ticket punch for the dance, one of these years the stars are going to align and you're going to win the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for Andy till he got to Kansas City, but they had a lot of success in that range. Ultimately, the stars aligned with Doug Peterson, but you're right. Everything you said. The NFC East is atrocious. If anything, the Giants have gotten worse because they're in full rebuild mode with a new coach and a new GM. The Washington Commanders are an abject disaster off the field, even more than on it. And the Cowboys, you mentioned all the significant losses from a talent perspective. Which is none of that is the Eagles' fault. You take advantage of a bad division. That's what they did to make the playoffs last year. That's what they did to make the playoffs in, 2 of Doug Peterson's years, really. That's the landscape. So why not take advantage of it? I go back to we can't do this. We can't do this. If you get in the playoffs and you have the right injury against your opponent, all of a sudden the stars are aligning. Where did the Eagles become I don't want to call them the Sixers because they're not tanking, but where did they become this organization that is constantly thinking about tomorrow and never thinking about today?
And they always seem to think about tomorrow. Just look at the draft. Just look at their trade on Monday. We're looking at 2023 to make that move for a quarterback if Jalen Hurts doesn't pan out. We want to put ourselves in that position. And I guess maybe they're doing that because they see guys like Russell Wilson and, elite quarterbacks not want to come here. And maybe they figure, we got to build that team. So these star players want to come here. Maybe that's what they're thinking. We want to be the Rams, because who would want to go to the Rams 4 or 5 years ago? I would never have guessed Bobby Wagner and Al Robinson and all these star players want to go there. Maybe the Eagles want to build that. Maybe they want to build what happened in 2004, where they were winning all the time. And then you had T.O. saying, I want to come here. I want to play with Donovan McNabb, Ron Kerr. So, yeah, I want to come here. I want to be part of Jim Johnson's defense. Maybe that's the culture they're trying to build. We're going to be the destination for free agents to go to. Maybe that's their long-term focus.
All right, JK, here's one that I think could shut me up. And I'm been on a little bit of a rant the last couple of days here, that the Eagles, in attempting to serve two masters this year, both improved for today and improved for tomorrow, have done a little bit more of a heavy lean on tomorrow, as John just pointed out. Here's a move for today, and it's possible, and it's just going to take commitment for them to do that. Why not the Honey Badger here in Philadelphia?
I'd take him right now.
He's still out there, which means whatever delusions of overpayment he thought he was going to get on the free agent market, we're now months into, and he hasn't gotten it. So we talk about Gannon and the type of safety he'd like to get and the type of safety he had in Minnesota. Well, certainly the Honey Badger fills that role better than anybody on the Eagle roster. And it will surely tell you better than anybody who's not named Kyle Hamilton in his upcoming drafts. Why not open up the purse strings a little bit and get yourself a Honey Badger?
Yeah, and that's one of those, if he falls into our price range, or if we feel like we can get him, I think they make a move and go get him. I'm not against that. There are certain players, like, I know everybody likes to bring him up, but DK Metcalf, that's a player that I know you got to pay him, but that's a guy I feel like, even if you're looking at the long-term game, that's a guy you could build your team around. Tyrann Mathieu is not old, and he's still a productive player. I know he didn't have that great of a year last year at Kansas City, but he's still a really good football player, and he's a guy that I think would significantly benefit in Jonathan Gannon's defense. And you're right, Joe. He's the prototypical type of player. You pin him with Darius Slay. All of a sudden now, maybe you draft a rookie quarterback in there. You have a formidable secondary, which is what they need. So I'm all on board for this. I think that these are the types of moves you make in the second wave of free agency that you can say, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't feel we're a Super Bowl contender in 2022, but we want to tell people that, hey, we're good enough. Like, we're good enough, and this is a reason why you should come.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Eagles are still talking with the Honey Badger, and Jeff, you described it as that's what it's going to be. If his number comes down, if it's 1 year, I don't know, they'd probably be willing to go pretty high in the 1 year situation. Then they bring him in a second, but he's a New Orleans guy. He probably wants to play with the Saints. He visited the Saints. We'll see. They don't have a lot of money though, so sometimes these things.
How much are the Eagles really going to have to pay to outbid the Saints?
Well, I don't know. There are creative things you can do. Just because Mickey Loomis doesn't do them at times, there are creative ways you can do these things, as we see with Howie all the time. But if his price comes down, yeah, I think the Eagles will bring him in, and if he's willing to play on a 1 year deal, especially, I think they would seriously consider bringing him in. But you brought up Metcalf. I think Metcalf is so interesting to me because there was that report, and Jody, you probably saw it as a Jets guy, that the Jets offered the 4th pick for DJ Metcalf.
Wait, was it the 10th pick?
There's no way. Why would they offer either? There's no stinking way, because people don't look at the back end. Then the extension is coming, and you got to pay the guy $20+ million.
And McManus had a good one.
Do you not think he's a $20 million plus salary guy, John?
Well, it was no, he is. That's what I'm saying. You have to pay him. So Jeff just brought up our buddy Tim McManus. Tim had a good trade. Tim had a sensible trade. Now I forget what it is.
It was a third and a fifth, which is a really good trade.
Third and a fifth.
Yeah,
a third and a fifth. Because you got to pay the money on top of it. So nobody's giving up the 4th pick in the draft. And I know Joe Douglas. He's not giving up the 4th stinking pick in the draft. And, then I'm going to go pay the player $20+ million. I mean, maybe we're too invested in this idea of valuation because we're around Howie Roseman all the time. But I know Joe Douglas is around Howie Roseman all the time. I can imagine he would do something like that. Yeah. So I don't think people, when they talk about trades, I don't think people look at the value on the back end and what you have to pay the player. So the more you have to pay the player, the more what you're giving up and the draft capital goes down. And I just see all these first round Eagles should give up their first. They don't have to give up their first round pick. Nobody's giving up their first round pick unless they're a desperate team. And
both the Raiders and the Dolphins did. And I'm not trying to compare DK Metcalf to either Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill. He's a step down from both of those guys, but they both commanded first round picks plus and get paid on the back end.
Yes, I would say he's the next tier down. He's not on that tier. Those guys are arguably 1-2. Certainly Devontae's 1. I think Tyreek is the most explosive player, but he's certainly there. And you throw Cooper Kupp in there as well, and maybe Chase and Jefferson, who aren't available as younger players. So he's on the next tier. He and AJ Brown, I think, are in that next tier, which is still really good players, still worth the money. And it always only takes one. And we've seen that. Like, I don't know what Mickey Loomis was doing with the trade he made. It only takes one. But when people start talking about top 10 picks and you got to pay the player, boy, that would be a bad trade. And I don't know if Joe Douglas, he's getting desperate if he would pull off a trade like that. That's all I'll say.
By the way, as someone who's, I don't want to say close with the organization, but someone who follows them a lot, the Ravens, I thought they were a team that if they would have been able to get Marcus Williams and Bobby Wagner, which basically from reading between the tea leaves, it looked like the Rams kind of stole him from the Ravens. I would definitely have them as a surefire Super Bowl contender out of the AFC. And they're still going to be really good next year, but they would have had those two. I think with all those players are coming back, and I think they're going to go after a receiver in this draft as well. I was really disappointed they weren't able to get Bobby Wagner because I thought he would have been just an absolute stud with McDonald.
All right, one last question for me, Mr. Covers the league wide. Baker Mayfield still in Cleveland. When is that going to rectify itself?
Do you guys even want him on Birds 365 at this point?
I think Baker. I like Baker better than most people.
I do too. He's not as bad as people make him out to be.
No.
If I was
for some reason, people act like he's Johnny Manziel. I mean, come on. Johnny Manziel was an abject disaster in his NFL life and his personal life, even more so. And Baker, I don't know, what was their playoff streak, Jeff, that they broke when they made the playoffs?
Well, they didn't win a playoff game since, what was it, 89?
Yeah.
And then he broke it, and they went to the playoffs, once? I think it was once since they came back?
Yeah. That's 99, yeah.
Yeah, so.
I mean, the guy is one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the world. The guy's a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's a top 10 or even a top 15 guy. And if I'm the Eagles, I'm not going after Baker Mayfield, but he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I thought he played through a very serious injury he shouldn't have been playing through. And he took a lot of hits for it. And I'm surprised the league has not looked, because they know, fans may not know, but they know what he played through. And he didn't look good, but they needed him and he tried to play through it. That's a positive in my
they got pummeled by the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. I'm in his news conference. He's coming in there and he looked like he was hit by a truck. That shoulder was just destroyed. And he goes out there and tries to play like, he just went through 4 quarters of hell pretty much. And I'm like, why is this guy playing right now? Like it's getting worse every year and every week. And everybody's criticizing about Bailey's play. I'm like, you try throwing with your injured, non-throwing shoulder. It ain't easy to do. I give him a lot of credit for doing it.
Yeah.
But where is he going to end up? If you're telling me
Obviously,
that he's a starting quarterback in the National Football League, well, then he's got to be either traded or released. There's no way they bring Baker Mayfield back with the
I could see Mike Tomlin running again.
That's why Cleveland probably hasn't released him yet, because they see the same thing you do.
Yeah, it's Mike Tomlin loves Baker Mayfield.
That'd be fun. That would be fun. Have Baker in Pittsburgh.
Go right to Pittsburgh and Cleveland cover that first game. I'd love to see Baker just kind of plant the Steelers flag on the field and do all his college antics.
I feel bad for Progressive. Is it Progressive? I'm giving them a free plug. Yeah, giving them a free plug. Yeah. They got to move Baker out of First Energy Stadium and his beautiful wife. They still do
play the commercials, though, at home with Baker Mayfield.
New stadium to do those commercials from this upcoming season. JK, always a pleasure, bud. Appreciate it. We'll get you on again before the draft. Thanks for hopping on today.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Jeff Kerr, CBSSports.com, NFL writer here with us on Birds 365. All right, yet to come, we've got Benjamin Solak, who's going to join us today. He did some time over at Bleeding Green Nation, now giving his football thoughts on The Athletic, is going to hop aboard with us.
The Ringer.
Did I say The Athletic? My bad. Yeah. The Ringer is going to jump aboard with us next hour here on Birds 365.